Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru. Hey,
The
Dan.
one and only Jen and Dan. Gotta love it. Tonight we're doing Nikola Tesla, and it ought to be really good. You're gonna go ahead and do the thing, I guess.
Yes. Before we get started, guys, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow the show. Today is January 18th, 2023. And for those of you who will be listening to the podcast, or even if you are viewing this on your phone and you can't quite see his chart, make sure you check that description. You'll find a PDF that you can download or view on your phone and follow along. So we're going to be diving into Nikola Tesla's chart tonight. So
Can't believe we didn't do them already.
I know. I know. It's going to be a great one to do. And he's definitely one that we really need to do some like forensics. I love pulling up people from the past as far as they've made like an impression in history. He definitely was somebody that brought in a lot of information that was much needed, but advanced for the time period of when he brought it in. I put on his thing freedom fighter because he was a freedom fighter and the system tried to suppress him a lot, but his information that he did bring through will impact us even in our future. So.
Yeah. For years to come. So, Nikola Tesla, let's pull this bad boy up and take a look.
All right.
Very different. We're off air. We started recording and then we forgot to record. That's why we're a little late, guys.
I could have swore I hit the broadcast button, but right after we did the intro, I realized that
I'm only mentioning it because we brought up Tesla, the rock and roll band, and of course Tesla Automotive's nothing to do with the man except the name. The name's the only thing they have in common. But look at him; he's total rock and roll. You put some big hair on that man, and he would fit right in.
Yes, he would.
So this chart, so he was open to the forces. That open head and the open ajna put him open to the forces. Now, if he could have stayed out of the conditioning field of many throughout his lifetime, for like, let's say more so than not, then that open head and ajna, don't forget, open head and ajna is the source of incredible wisdom. People with open heads and open ajnas, they study, they got lots of books. It never ends. In fact, when I read for people, as soon as I see open head, open ajna, I announce to them, how big is your bookcase? Because whether it's digital or not, and he was loaded. He would never stop devouring material. And that's that's the norm for an open head, open ajna, wanting to study.
He was from the time of birth. And the older that he got, he was very selective with the people that he had in his circle. So he was very reclusive. But I mean, that's all he did when he was younger was study, read.
And then
I think his mother was a teacher, if I'm not mistaken. If she wasn't a teacher, she really did support his education. So
it showed up because now if he was smacking the conditioning field of everybody, he'd be all messed up. We would have no Nikola Tesla in our recent history. But if he was protected from the forces, the conditioning forces that take him away from his nature, you have to be like this. So first of all, he's a generator. He's a manifesting generator. So he's always trying to go fast. He's always trying to skip steps and move along and hop into the next thing. He's a 3-6 profile. So that's a third line personality in a changing profile, a mutative profile. These odd profile numbers, the 3-6, these fall in between the prime profiles, the primary profiles. The very next one coming up, this would have been a 3-5 a couple hours earlier and a 4-6 a couple hours later. And so there's a changing profile in between each, acting as a knuckle. Go ahead, Jen, you were going to ask?
We haven't done a 3-6, have we?
No, they're rare. It's a rare profile. Robbie is a 3-6 or a 6-3. I forget. I think she's a 6-3. Incredibly mutative. So, but when the third line's in your profile, trial and error, mutative, sustained, mutative, trial and error, where pessimism is an actual guide if you're yourself, and it's the bane of your existence if you're not yourself as a third line profile, personality profile. So, sustainment, the anarchist is in here. The absolute anarchist is what is part of this profile. And again, the martyr, people always looking, Tesla, you're not going to get that right. Tesla, I don't know if you're going to get this. I don't know if that's going to be right. Didn't you try that already? These are the kinds of things he heard, which would have drove him reclusive. But it's also this quad right. I noticed we've been seeing a little bit more of it, Jen. The right facing arrows, his cognition and his way and his view.
I
and
didn't
his
even
perception.
notice that. My gosh, they're all right.
That means this man is in the future. When you have an all right variable, these are called variables. That's what the arrows are, the variables. The top set of variables, the line across the top, that one, and the one on the right, the very top two, those are the dependent variables. They depend on the two below that are the independent variables. The lower left and the lower right are the two on the below. Yeah. And yep. And this just means that this man was always taking in. He was constantly taking in. And if he was truly conditioned by the outside world a lot, he would have been trained to be strategic, and he's open and receptive. This man was never strategic. Everything came to him in a flash. His life came to him in a flash. And he had the ego. What? Speak.
Well, he was strategic because he, if you understood the power of 3, 6, 9, you would understand the secrets to the universe. He is a 3-6 profile, which equals 9. This man he would walk around the block 3 times before he entered a building. He would do something. It was like repetitive in the numbers of 3s or 6s or 9s. And his profile is 369.
Yep, it literally is. And strategic, by the way, when you are open and receptive, like you and I, Jen, we're open and receptive a lot. He's all 4 parts open receptive. It doesn't mean you can't have strategic things happen. It means when he's it's about the strategery and the activeness is about going into his mind and his brain system and his environment and focusing on the one thing that you strategically are going to pull out and do something with. No, this man got his stuff in a flash. It wasn't through strategery that he got his stuff. Yes, he received it in a flash. Let's look at so that third line profile, obviously the trial and errorist. So he was constantly going to try something, and his creative expression in that is called sustainment. He must sustain at his trial and error. And so he did. He came up with great stuff, but if you were a fly on the wall day in and day out, you would find all the things that didn't work before the things that did. Right? And what's wrong with that? That's perfect for a scientist. He was always going to shock the world. Always. And the thing is, when I say it came through in a flash, his identity, this love gate that he has, that is gate 25 in his body graph off the G center. Universal love of all things, his universal love of the cosmos, of the world around him, of how things worked, universally speaking. He was doing this for everyone. He was basically a man of the people while being sort of reclusive at the same time. The people just didn't know it. They had to wait 100 years to see all this stuff come through.
Well, yeah. Well, that's because you had Edison that was trying to suppress him because he completely outdid Edison, and Edison didn't like that. And Edison wanted to hook everybody up so that they could charge for electricity. Nikola Tesla wanted to give the world free energy, and JP Morgan Chase as well. I mean, the people that have set the suppression that we are under now really took his inventions and suppressed it. Like when he went to Colorado, that's where his experimentation really started to take off. That's when they really came in and tried to take away all of his inventions and stuff.
Right. No one would have been able to keep up with this man per se. So here we have this powerful ego, and he's through the channel of initiation, a design of being shocking. And so he dealt with a lot with electricity, which was shocking, like quite literally. All these serendipities keep piling up, and half of it's unconscious. That means he didn't know where half of that shock came from. He never knew how he was going to land after he would leap. He just had this insatiable desire and a hunger to leap. But he never knew how he would land, and he didn't care. He was all right. His variables and his all rightness kept him open and receptive to the forces. When I say open and receptive, I mean his whole cognition was taking in. 10 years earlier, he took in a tidbit of information, and as soon as he, as a generator, is in response to something new 10 years later, that information is available. When you have a strategic mind, it's not so available, meaning left-facing arrows.
Yeah.
When you have an open and receptive mind, it all comes in. You're just this giant pulling in of stuff. That means all the knowledge in the world kept being pulled into him. All the books he would read, everything he read when he was young, it stayed there like a savant. When you're all right, you've got this savant-like capacity, unless you're conditioned fully, unless you're like, when I say fully, unless you're very conditioned. Again, if he grew up anyplace else, we wouldn't have this.
He didn't like
his mom. We owe his mom a big debt of gratitude, and his dad apparently, maybe I don't know, but his parents.
I watched a documentary not that long ago on him. Ethan Hawke actually played Nikola Tesla, and it was pretty good. I didn't get to finish it. I need to go back and finish it.
So the sustainment of this man in the first part of his life would have been so shocking, because if you look over on the left, that 5157, this cross of penetration of his, that's in a 6th line. That means
he's got a lot of 6s
right. So that means that the first approximately 30 years of his life, 28 and a half really, of his life, was that played out the role of a 3rd line. 6th line beings are the ones ushering in the mutation that's coming through, whether they know it or not. And the 6th line goes through a 3-part process. So unconsciously, he was just bumping into everything. 3rd lines are mutative. They're keynoted with adaption. So he was constantly adapting to whatever people would mock him about the stuff he couldn't do or wasn't going to figure out, or what are you talking about, Nikolai? He would have been opening his mouth a ton in the beginning as a younger kid, because he was always bumping into things. That's what 3rd lines do. Their job is to bump into stuff. Look at it like an agitation zone. 3rd and 4th lines are agitation zones. They bump into things, and then they externalize what they bumped into. And then as he goes through this phase approaching 30, he would have started to get more objective And that's when he would have started really coming into his stride about so many things. And then after 5 or 10 years of that, he started to get a little bit reclusive, would be my guess. By the time he was 50, he was getting a little bit reclusive. So I'm just pointing out that for the first part of his life, his profile was a 3-3. Think about that. His profile was a 3-3. So the keynotes of the third line and their roles in interaction and in the life and in the world are the anarchist, the sustainer, to sustain whatever his creative value is, to sustain it forever, never stop, sustainment, trial and error, full on trial and error. Let me try this, let me try that, let me try this, and a full right personality with all these right arrows that pulled it all in and remembered everything he did. Now, if he went in, this is what the right does. If he goes in there and says, I'm going to remember what I remembered 10 years ago, he can't find it. Strategic people do that. Strategic people go in and find what they remembered 10 years ago. He can only live out his nature, which is that of an emotional manifesting generator, and respond to it. So a bolt falls on the floor. He recognizes something from that. And in that recognitional response, he remembered the thing he needed from 10 years earlier. That's how right-mindedness works. It's just any kind of response to anything whatsoever will pull back the entirety. The full Cardex comes back. It's like the savant at the library. When you're all right, you're like the savant at the library. Not literally. You'd have to have that crazy ass wiring that a true savant has, but he had savant qualities, incredible savant qualities. You know, the savant that memorized the dictionary, the whole, library, and can tell you where every book is. Savant. And that's him. So his definition, he is 3 separate parts of him. So he didn't want to necessarily, he had to go out in public. And so he did. I don't know when, but he did covertly.
Oh, yeah, he didn't. I don't think he was much of it. He didn't like much people, he wasn't.
Yeah, well, as a triple split, he has to move through the auras of others sooner or later. But the other stuff about a triple split is the fact that if you have a triple split in your definition, which just means there's 3 separate pieces of definition. So on the lower side of his body graph, lower left, you see 2 channels that make the spleen, the root, and the sacral be defined. You see 52-53 or 42-53, and you see 32-54. That's all by the spleen and the root and the sacral. And then you see that channel of initiation between the ego and the identity center, the G center. There's another piece that's not connected to anything else. You see, it doesn't connect up to that 45 or go out to any of the other places. It's all by itself. And then his emotional definition on the right, that's not connected to either of the other 2 parts. 3 separate parts and emotional. This man was best when he was literally all alone, allowed to basically go through his whole emotional process with the stuff that would have been so shocking in the moment, while he was a manifesting generator moving according to his nature, which would have been in response to the things. But he always would have had to wait. He didn't digest the information necessarily right away. This is new information. Old information that's been previously digested, they're just as quick as anything else. I'm talking about the new. That means when he was running around, doing his experiments and figuring out what was what, he had to take lots of time with them so that the information could digest into something new. And as I recall, Nikola Tesla was reclusive for freaking years at a time.
Years, and I mean, he was one that would lock himself away and would stay up for 3 days in a row, and not sleep, and just doing whatever he was working on at the moment.
Well, if you have the channel of initiation in your body graph, you are shocking. You will do shocking things. You will have a shocking nature. People will try to compete with you to outshock you. Yeah, and people try to compete with you. People try to take the person with the channel of initiation and dare them to do things. So in the dare, that ego of his was perfectly able to answer the call. Oh yeah, you want me to be first? That's what the ego says. I want to be first. And it's not the ego self-aggrandizement that we think that sounds like at all. It's just the power of the ego that says, oh my God, I want to get it. And in the wanting of getting it, they are first. And they love that. Go ahead.
Now that you say that, is it like the ones that volunteer first, or?
Sure.
Like I'm one of those, when everyone's waiting to do something and everyone's kind of quiet, not saying anything. I'm like, okay, let's go.
But Jennifer, let's look at that volunteering. That's a great example, because volunteering for what? To scramble the eggs? No, volunteering for the outrageously something new under the sun, brand spanking new and excitement. Volunteering for the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
The gate 51 in there says, I want it to be exciting. I want it to be thrilling. I want to leap into the void. I want to jump. I want to go for it. And,
well, that would make sense why he moves all the way from Croatia to the United States.
Oh yeah, get the heck out of there.
Well, I think he moved over here. I don't think he had much. Like he did. I don't even think he really spoke the English that well. I mean, like he just did it because he was on a drive to, for people to start noticing him and his inventions.
Well, America would have been the place to go.
Yeah.
So down at the bottom of his body graph, he's got this format channel, the channel of maturation from 52 up to 42. This is what makes him a generator.
52 or 53 to 42.
53, sorry, to 42.
Okay,
53 to 42. My bad. So what this guarantees is an incredible expansion. And it guarantees that, like a dog with a bone, when he bites onto it, he's going to mature that process through to its completion. Gate 53 is about starting things. It's the hunger to start. And it doesn't know what to start necessarily. It's just the hunger to move and start. It comes out of the adrenalized fuel of the root center, the adrenalized pressure to start something. And he's got a defined root so he could handle that pressure. He was used to it. Just like you and I have a defined head and ajna. We're used to the mental pressure. If other people had to live in our head, they would cry, If we had to live in Nikola Tesla's zone, you and I we'd get a lot of good, quick lessons on how to deal with the "it's not my pressure" deal. He would be a great teacher for us, let's say. Well, this channel of maturation being a format channel, it means that its way, this channel's essence formats everything else in the body graph. That's why they call these three channels between the root and the sacral format channels. They format everything. This channel is also part of his incarnation cross. The 53 is, anyways. That's where his sun is. His personality sun is in gate 53, and it's also in a definition. That means it's always on for this man. Always. And it's on. Yes.
That makes sense.
Yep. And when you take that channel of maturation and what it's actually supposed to do, it's supposed to bring things through to completion. Gate 42 is about completing and getting through to the end and staying through a process all the way through. It's in the collective circuitry. So he needed to share the things he started and finally made his way through. But because that 42 of his is unconscious, he was always nervous about finishing it, even though he was stuck in the process. When I say nervous about it, that would have come out in any kind of number of ways with him. I don't know if he was sitting there actually with nervousness, but there would have been a nagging thing at him, like, I started it. Where's it going to go? Where is it going to go? And in reality, with a third line being sustained creativity, sustainment is the keynote of how his creativity will come out. The keynote for my creativity is, as a second line, is harmony. So my creativity comes out in harmony with my environment, harmony in my aloneness, harmony as a hermit. It only sustains if I respond. He's designed to sustain. That's what third lines do. And every time you knock the third line down, they get back up. That's a feature of a third line. You knock them down, they're like the weebles that wobble. You knock them down, they get back up. You knock them down, they get back up. So he could have been knocked down all over the place. Moving to America, smart move. And not to mention, totally up his alley. Third, lines move around. They bump into the next opportunity and off they go. Hey, trial and error. Let's go to America. Let's try that. Let's try this. He would have moved to 100 places if each one offered a markedly better environment for him to do his thing. So, but he came to America. And so this hunger and desire, it keynotes with also desire, because it's in this desirous, experiential, abstract collective process. He's required to share that which his desires found out along the way. And so he was always biting at the chomp to share his stuff, but he wouldn't share it until he came to some kind of completion. He didn't share early. Like the person who wants to pretend they're got the juice and they share too early and the people call them out. Okay, make it work. And it's like, well, hold on, I'm almost there, almost there. Nikola Tesla didn't show up with, hey, I'm almost there. He showed up with his version of completion. I'm there. Now here it is. Chew on that, Edison. Chew on that, whoever. But powerful forces could control him easily. Money surrounding him, cutting him off, taking patents, doing illegal things. You know what I'm
it's so sad what really happened. You know, he got funding. I can't remember which company it was that helped him. And
it was GE, I think.
Well, he gave away his rights. You know, they went and made all this money on his invention, and he didn't get a damn thing for it because of certain things, you know. But genuinely, he wanted to really help the people. He knew that we shouldn't be paying for the stuff that we are paying for now, that they, you know, they keep us, it's like a slavery, you know, the electricity.
Yeah, it's all true. And so now marry that up with the other channel that goes to the spleen and becomes part of his incarnation cross when you get to the 57, but that 5432. So Nikola Tesla had an incredible sense, an incredible smell, an incredible instinct for that which would bring the next new material thing. You want a coil that's magnetic? Here you go. You want a motor that seems to run on less? Here you go. You want this amazing design? You want this cool calculation as to why 369 is a actual thing inside of the natural world? Here you go. And he was driven to do that. So put these two channels together, and everything that made him a generator, which was here, is right here, because it's the only channel that touches his sacral.
Mm-hmm.
So put these keynotes together along with the gate 57, that is this penetrating awareness. He's penetrating aware of where suddenly he's about to be driven in response because of his rightness that pulled in all the information he needed to start something new and bring it to the end. He was driven to penetrate into the what is it, sniff out and smell out what the success will be, and to bring some form of material success into his life. And he was driven to do that by starting these new things. He would as soon as one invention worked, he was hungry to start the next one. Everything in this abstract collective circuitry, which is a lot, somewhere in it has a hunger. Hunger. You can keynote the whole process with that. And it's hungry to share. So he had to share his shocking discoveries that he completed himself after bumping into and mutatively sustaining at all the stuff he figured out, while drawing on this incredible rightness in his body graph to put it all together, and then being instinctually driven to drive that out into being broadcasted. Had he had the channel 44 to 26, you have that channel. Had he had that channel, he would have transmitted the right message at the right time. He would have had the right ego willpower to smell a rat in his negotiations that took away all his patents and his rights. He would have smelled that out and held out for a better deal had he had that channel. But he had the supporting channel for it, the fuel to identify and smell it out. He just didn't have the awareness that gate 44 would have brought as it relates to the alertness. He didn't need it, but had he had that, his alertness would have been to the bad smell of that room where he was negotiating the deal that was about to make sure he got no money out of it, and he didn't know. He would have smelt it. He would have brought it out. It would have been a different story.
Yeah. I think on something when he got older, I know one of the things that didn't JP Morgan Chase got upset with was that when he did receive the funding, he didn't do what they thought that he was going to do. Like he was trying to build inventions. It was the tower that he was building to help, give free electricity. So.
Wow. It's a man of the people. And again, he was really for the future. The man was for the future. And he lived that out so shockingly well. He was a warrior. He had the warrior spirit. And then you add in this emotional channel, 2212. So 12 said, and look at it, it's defined twice all the way through. It's on both sides of his body graph because it's striped. So it's in the red and the black, personality and design. And this is the design of either a social or an anti-social being. This is, he had the grace to listen. So as soon as something made sense and was worth listening to, gate 22 had the grace to listen. And so he would listen. Most people didn't have stuff worth saying that was worth listening to. He had the emotional discernment to figure that out. He figured that out. Not all the way through, or else he wouldn't have got rooked on his deal, and whatever. I mean, Nikola Tesla should have been a mega wealthy man. I imagine. I don't assume he was ever a pauper or anything, but I don't know. And gate 12 of that channel it says caution. I'm cautious about this. I want to be alert to the caution. It's called standstill. It wants to stand still at first before its manifesting capacity. Well, in other words, it's an assessment process. I will assess and then take action rather than just take action. So, and it makes him emotional. So there are times when he would have been up and down on a wave. And if he was left to his own devices, he would have, more so than not, he wouldn't have looked for reasons for that so much. So he lived a good long life. He lived almost till he was 90. My guess is he came to terms with how his body's chemistry worked in his open and receptive, all right, variable and cognition. He was a man looking into the future all the time, not realizing it. A man of the future. That's what rightness is. It's our future. We're all headed there, by the way. Humanity is headed right, period.
Yes.
For our cognition. And he hated the strategic world that says only do the inventions if this gets me that. He rebelled against it, and he had the ego authority to rebel and say, I'm glad you gave me all your money. I'm now doing what I want with it. That's the shocking warrior. The shocking warrior that says, screw you, tough, I did it. Yes,
it is.
Yeah. And I published my findings, and you couldn't stop that. It's now in the world. His desire to share the thing he started and his drive to do so shockingly poured it into the world when his channel of caution said, time to not be cautious. That's what it does. It's there to identify the times to not be cautious. Meaning, I'm a manifesting component. That's a manifesting channel. It stands on its own. It's not connected to the sacral. So in essence, parts of this can very much act like the manifester, period. Parts of him acted as the manifester. If he tries to act out the manifester way, he'll get sick. He still has to surrender to his sacral. But here's an example. As soon as he had his sacral response and he gate 52 bit into the thing that he was now going to be driven to complete, as soon as that happened, he could start to act like a manifester. Get out of my way. Move this thing. I'm doing this. Don't bother me now. This is one of the gates of aloneness is gate 12. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. So
I know that all too well.
Right. You've got two of those gates, Jen, as I recall.
Yes. Once I'm in the flow, that's where I'm like, I just let me be.
Yeah, it's wicked important. And so you start to add all this up, and here was by the way, this 1222 is about being, because it's so powerful and a manifesting component, because gate 12 is one of the 3 great teaching gates. Great teaching gates. You have 2 of them. You have all 3 of them, Jen. They're 45.
All 3 of the teaching gates?
Yes, they're 45, 12, and 11.
Mm-hmm.
And 45 teaches the tribe the ways it wants to. And in this case, his tribe was humanity. He wanted to teach us the ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it was unconsciously driven in him because it's red. And but this channel is about deeply, deeply about being sensitive to what you just heard, and then suddenly, in a first impression, becoming a person of consequence. He had the ability to suddenly become a person of consequence. That's what gate 12 does. And when you got the whole channel, it's manifested. He made manifest his consequentialness. He's a design to manifest his consequentialness. Look, he's driven to start the new thing. The new thing he needs to start is in his personality sun, gate 53.3. Wait till I read those. And in that drive, he's a design of someone to, with the right timing, become consequential. If his timing was all wrong, he wouldn't have been as consequential. But again, his mother and father, his parents did something right with him. They left him alone. They didn't tell him he only made mistakes. That would have been one of the biggest things they could have done for him. Was tell him,
I think his mom was like really supportive.
That means it wasn't, oh, you did it wrong. It was, oh, what did you learn?
Yes, that's exactly how she was.
Yeah, what did you learn, honey? I see you broke it all, but what did you learn? You know, that's a supportive parent to their 3rd line child. If you have a 3rd line child, they don't make mistakes. They are determined discoverers, determined to sustain at finding out what does and doesn't work. That's what we call trial and error. So if you're finding out what does and doesn't work, that means half the time the stuff doesn't work. Very often, most of the time, the stuff doesn't work, you know, here and there until something does. They'll keep going. So if you have a 3rd line child, doesn't matter what side, just put this mantra in your head, mom and dad. Your child can't make a mistake. The question is, what did you discover? What did you find out? And even if they broke something important, you can teach them how not to break, and teach them how important it is. Don't yell at them for having broke the thing that was important. Teach them how important it is. And then ask them, what did they learn?
Failure is a lesson learned. Success is a lesson learned applied.
Yes, applied. So that's what I'm saying. The consequential person with the warrior spirit and the innocence of the love of all things, to shock into nature the need to share the discovery of the thing he started, and being driven to do that with this penetrating awareness that penetrates the scene. He could always penetrate through the veneer of whatever it was that was up against him. I mean, I'm looking at this guy, and I wouldn't necessarily want to play poker with him. You know, just look at the stare, penetrating. Oh shoot, I wish we had Lori on. Or you know what? Every time we do one of these things, if she did the person, we should pull up a clip of whatever she says about Nikolai, about people, because I know
Did she do one?
She
Let
did
me
Nikolai.
check.
So the thing is, they go on. We would have to choose what to do with it, but yeah, would love to.
She does her short clips, but I haven't seen if she posted one. She did.
You found it?
Yeah.
Can you play it?
I can. Hold on.
You want me to keep talking?
Sure. Keep talking. I'll have to take down his chart just for a moment, but I can definitely pop it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
He was a design to explain things because he had that gate 23 in his body graph. And when I start reading the lines of his 54 and his 53 in his sun earth, the 54 in his personality sun and the 53, they are all 3rd line. So 54.3 and 53.3. You're going to love this. Practicality. So he's grounded in his earth for the practicality. And this is a process he was born with, by the way. He didn't have to learn this. It showed up. And it's this pressure to eliminate conflict in order to develop. So he would have figured out how to eliminate the conflict all over the place, and it's a natural position for him. In the not self of this, which he would have been pulled into, which he did, it's the energy to provoke the conflict that threatens the development rather than the pressure and the wisdom to eliminate the conflict that threatens development. So he lived out both of those things. Go ahead and play it.
Oh.
There's no sound on this end.
No sound?
Not for me. God, everyone's got that same picture.
I did the share sound.
Oh, it might come out on the whatchamacallit. Maybe we have to play with this before we do it in the middle of the show. LOL.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. What I'll do is I'll post it in the comments and in the description for you guys to go check out Lori. She is, if you have not checked face reading, my God, she is phenomenal on it. It's kind of eerie too.
It is kind of eerie. That's why I bring it up. I only bring it up because it's kind of spooky weird.
But she's really good. I haven't seen the Nikola Tesla, but everything else she's been spot on with.
But while we're mentioning her, can you holler out what her handle is? What is it on Instagram or whatever?
Yes, on Instagram it's Modern Hypnosis Lori, and she's on TikTok. I think it's the same Modern.
Yeah, it's the same on both.
Yeah.
So moving into this throat center of his still, he's got a gate 23. It's there a couple of times. He's got a lot of repeated definition here. That means when finally his open receptiveness was driven enough to start the thing that he then discovered, and he's a design of discovery. That means when all that happened, after all the pressure was done, and after his triple split finally had time to work through it all, Nikola Tesla could explain the crap out of anything. Gate 23 is incredibly metamorphic. It metamorphosizes the sound in the brain, and it metamorphosizes what is just sound, not even pictures. It's just a frequency that finally assembles itself into a description of something, which we call explanation. In the I Ching, they called it the gate of assimilation. They recognize that humanity seems to have this ability to assimilate amazing things into something they can articulate. It assimilates mental activity into articulation. And so when he did speak, he was a speaking fool. He could say anything. He had everything in the world to say about it. And back to this sun earth of his. So gate 53, line 3, that's in his sun. I said it was earth before, I was mistaken. So he is driven to maximize development. The gate of beginnings. He's driven to constantly begin stuff. So it didn't matter how much money they gave him to do something. If he had already begun something else, tough. And he's got that ego warrior spirit to tell them whatever they need so that they'll give him the money. Again, it's called practicality. It's the most natural position, the concentrated on avoiding conflict to ensure the protection and continued development of whatever it is he was after, the pressure to eliminate conflict. Well, how did he do that? He just got out of Dodge. He just stayed out of their way. He was only in the conflictual positions once in a while when he was advocating for money or fighting back people trying to take his inventions. On his not self, it would have been the energy that provokes conflict. He showed up plenty of times and provoked the very conflict that he ran into that he then had to now tamp back down. So he was his own worst enemy in certain ways. There was plenty of times when he would have just fallen into, oops, I provoked that, because someone would have said something, and in his delicateness to listen, and in his warrior spirit, and in his sacral energy that has a response, and in all of his brightness that had everything in the world he'd ever seen ready to go, he would have responded in this driven ego, fantastically, experiential way that would have suddenly provoked the other. He would have provoked them. Oops, let me provoke the conflict. Oops, sorry, did I just start something I didn't want to start? Poor Nikola Tesla started things he didn't want to start as it related to social faux pas. He was Mr. Social Faux Pas. Not always, but enough to where he had to recluse himself to get the hell out. Not to mention, consciously, he knew this. If you look at the smile on this man's face, he's got this devilish little smile that knows he can provoke you. I will provoke you. He's got gate 39. It's part of the channel of emoting. It's called the provocateur. It's the gate of provocation.
Mm-hmm.
Its opposition is the fighter. So the fighter and the provocateur. He doesn't have gate 38, but he does have gate 39. And
I was surprised he doesn't have 55, but
well, that would have given him that whole stream of information, stream of awareness from 39 all the way up to 12.
right.
But no, 55 wasn't in the cards for him. So he didn't have the melancholy over my spirit is low. His primary melancholies were there's nothing new under the sun. I feel insignificant. There's nothing worth listening to. I don't want to hear you. I can't tell what you're trying to say. And the melancholy over there's nothing worth even doing. What am I going to do? There's nothing worth doing because there's nothing worth hearing because there's nothing new. Every one of these, what did those I just keynoted the melancholy one would need to fuel and empower incredible invention. Because what happens? The melancholy never stays. The emotional wave never stays. It drives the intelligence inside the man. I'm guessing when he would go into a funk, he would basically remove himself from people, which is an immediate intelligent thing for an emotional person to do.
Yes.
He would remove himself. And I'm guessing he discovered somewhere along the way, just like when he discovered 369, that he discovered this is a creative process. I'm not saying he liked it or had good keynotes for it, but he would have discovered this is a creative process. Yep, this going down would have been a creative process. So that's what 53.3, the drive coming out of his sun to do this, says that. Now 54, line 3, the mutative soul that he is, it's called, you're going to love this. So 54 is called the marrying maiden, the gate of drive. It's about the instinct to be driven in interaction. The instinct about being driven in interaction. Before development, new beginnings was the structured progress that is steadfast and enduring. Steadfast and enduring was his sun, line 3, 53, line 3. And then interactions that basically guarantee success somewhere along the way. That's 54.3. And the third line is called covert interaction. Covert interaction. It fits him. It's the drive when blocked. So he was being blocked a lot because he would provoke it. He was obnoxiously provoking at times. He went to his share of parties and he was invited to things. He was in that. He wasn't in poverty land. He was invited to what wealthy people did. Not saying he always went. And he would provoke the crap out of whatever. He stood there as a provocateur. He would have been very attractive to others. The husbands who had all the money wouldn't want their wives around him very much per se. And they would all feel threatened if they said, that man is so interesting. Because that's what you get out of a design like this. That man is so interesting. Oh my God, he's so interesting. And that emotional wave of his that would have drawn, attracted attention towards him. All those teaching gates, every time someone came near him, he taught them something.
Yeah.
And so
I can see that.
This drive, when blocked, to use secretive means and fueling his ambition. In the not self, basically, when that would flip on him and he would act out basically the energy that wasn't necessarily his to act out, the energy of ambition, when blocked, will fuel the power of the attraction to overcome the things. So either way, how that reads is basically secretive power covertly to fuel ambition, or overt power that gets blocked but sustains and fuels the ambition anyways. You can't really say it's a detriment. Just one runs into more resistance than the other. So But he's a generator, manifesting generator. He can handle the resistance. He's a third line for half of his life. First half of his life, he was a third line, both design side and personality side. So at the end of the day, this person is designed to sustain long hours of creativity, become incredibly consequential on both sides of his body graph, be able to articulate all of it in detailed drawings and whatever it is he needed to pour out with sustained energy that was driven to start each new thing and bring it through to completion. My guess is, if there's any secret Nikola Tesla paper somewhere, they show completions we could have never dreamed of. He completed the stuff he started, or he was miserable.
Well, they have, after he passed away, FBI went in and got all of his
They stole all his crap, didn't they?
belongings. Well, you know whose uncle was part of that, right?
J. Edgar Hoover.
No, Trump.
Was part of what?
Trump's uncle was part of the ones that got Nikola Tesla's documents.
Oh, well, that makes me feel a little better. But J. Edgar Hoover, I believe, was running the FBI at the time that he died.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And J. Edgar Hoover he's a little bit of he was bad.
He was a cross-dresser.
Was he? I love it. Oh yeah, that's right. I heard about that. Okay, Jay. That's fun. So you got these powerful forces that I was talking about on the right hand side, and then here's the role model. The role model, that sixth line unconscious in him, that role model wants trust, and if he can't find it, he's going to ditch it. Trust is so important to that sixth line, so much so. If he can't say it right, he lived out his role model existence. If he can't say it, he'll be seen as a hypocrite. And he didn't want to be seen as a hypocrite. So he only said the things that he could be the role model on, the one that shows the wisdom.
Which one was that?
It's just the gate. It's just the sixth line of his profile, that 3-6 profile. I'm just talking about the role model capacity. But when you add the 51 and the 57 to that role model capacity, and you've got the warrior role model with a penetrating awareness as to what immediately to penetrate into to come to this sudden intuitive knowing that comes in unconsciously through his rightness to give him the next discovery he's going to need to know in a shocking way. Shockingly able to transition through discovery, through beginning, middle, and end. That keynotes how those gates sort of would work together. The transitional nature of shock to land on its feet and bring something that we would expect from a role model without hypocrisy. The capable administrator is that role model, amongst other things. That's a lot. And this man had this penetrating awareness by which to do that. And that gate 48 off of the spleen said, I am the great well. I am the well of depth. As time goes on, I keep growing deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, if he didn't let that become a head trip about what he wasn't, because there's no gate 16 on the other side, then he was just aware he got deeper and deeper and deeper. And every time he had melancholy that he's not deep enough, which would have been who he's not, the not self, saying, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not deep enough, his melancholy would have just given him new depth as a creative process. This was a theme going back and forth. And he could sit still for long hours.
Yeah.
Well, gate 52 is the gate of stillness. It's the I Ching 5,400 years ago said humanity has a genetic capacity to stand still like a mountain. And they called the gate keeping still mountain. Like the mountain that, it's there. You can't miss it. It's there. But it sits still in order to focus and concentrate.
I have 9. That's I
don't have gate 9 as well. That makes us incredibly focused and concentrated on taming the details.
I can't sit still though. I wish I could.
Right. Neither of us have a gate 52. So sitting still is hard. It's intermittent. It shows up sometimes. More than not, it's not there. So, and then the last thing to bring up about him is this perfect little hermited natural that is his truth. His truth was I will express what I care for. 27. Gate 27 said, what I care for is about the most important thing to me. The gate of nurture, the sacral sustained ability, gate 27 coming off the sacral, to be able to sit still long enough to figure out what is he going to nurture. And what did he want to nurture? Free electricity for the planet, free power. He wanted to nurture the sharing of whatever it was that he started, of his incredible, shocking inventions that he was driven to get out into the world. That's the description of Nikola Tesla. I love this design. I don't know what he was like as a person. I couldn't tell you, but I think this is a perfect design for him.
Yes. Oh, this is from what I have researched, investigated, with him. Yeah, it fits him perfectly. And it is a perfect design to come through and incarnate on what he was designed to do.
Absolutely. That truth of his.
That's a perfect avatar vehicle.
Avatar for him. So that truth of his in that gate 27, it's Pluto's truth is always worth you could just read for a person's truth, as long as you tell them their type and their strategy and authority. But after that, you could just read for what's in their Pluto. It's so profound to people. The truth of him was nurturing and caring, the enhancement of all qualities through the activity of caring and nurture. And in the second line, which is unconscious to him, the little natural is called self-sufficiency. That to give, one must have. Self-sufficiency. So that's the hermit. The hermit would go his truth was to be a hermit and find out for a spell of time to find out where his self-sufficiency would lie. And consciously, it's the ability through whatever means to keep his grip on what is it he's after. Whatever it is he cares for, the ability to grip onto and externalize that which he cares for. That was his truth. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. It was written down 400 years ago, and it was written down again, 30 something, 40 years ago, and 35 years ago. What to do? You can't make this stuff up. His truth was he had to externalize, speak out, and basically share and empower with the world everything he started and completed and all the scientific discoveries. And with that open head and that open mind and that rightness, the whole world would have been this magical mystery tour for him. Oh my God, these things do that? Why do they do that? Let me check that out. Oh my God, those things do that? What is it? What? Let me do it. Let me check it out. Out comes the experimentalist. So then first 28 years drove his experimentalism because he lived a profile of a 3-3. Experiment, experiment, experiment. Trial and error experiment. So he blew some stuff up too.
I'm sure.
Something blew up. Something went bang throughout his experiments,
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the movie The Prestige. If you haven't, you got to watch it. It's
I've heard
fantastic.
of it. With Sean Connery.
David Bowie plays Nikola Tesla in it. But yeah, it's intriguing movie to see. It's not about Nikola Tesla, it's about something else, but it involves an invention that Nikola Tesla supposedly could have done.
He was a perfect inventor, and he had all these teaching gates, and what he cared for was to share it all with the world, and the powers that be squished him, and he was driven to do these things. My guess is he knew he got the information out somehow. He got the information out somehow.
Absolutely.
I know I would have.
Well, we have Shakti joined us again tonight. She says, wow, very powerful chart. Quite interesting. I finally figured out what it means to have a split definition. So did I. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yep.
He lived his life fully with high purpose. And we have Commander Lace with us. Hello, honey.
Hey, Lace. Love you, hon.
It's my past lover. Forever will be in love with him. LOL. Edison really screwed him over as J.P. Morgan with Wardenclyffe Tower. That's it. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it.
Commander Lace is that last testimonial we just got, Jen. That's
Yes. I know. She follows. We're all over each other's accounts. I know exactly who she is.
oh,
She's
nice.
Yeah, I do believe that he is listening to this show, and I hope we did do justice. Thank you, Nikola Tesla, for all your work. Great soul and
Super
fascinating rebel.
Yep, and wicked articulate. He just was so articulate when he needed to be. I love this man.
And yep, very penetrating face. And Shakti asked, The Prestige is the name of the movie. It has David Bowie in it, Christian Bale, and
Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. It is one of those movies at the end of it, you're just going to be like, what the fuck? And you're going to watch it all over again.
Yeah.
But David Bowie does a great job of Nikola Tesla in that movie. So that's a good one. And like I saw another movie that Ethan Hawke played Nikola Tesla. So I didn't get to finish it. I don't have a full review on that, but it was kind of interesting to hear, just different stories of how people portray him. I liked the one that I did watch with Ethan Hawke. I can't remember the name. I'll make sure I can try to post that. It was, it showed him. A lot of documentaries that I saw was, not too accurate that I got the feeling of, but, yeah, I mean, he brought a lot of stuff to the world, and I do feel that he is still around. His spirit is definitely still around, and the inventions that he had way back then, are coming to true now and even into our future. Like, he knew that people were going to have cell phones.
He sure did. He knew a lot of things of that nature.
He also knew what they would do to humanity as well, and a lot of the stuff he advised against. So
I think Nikola Tesla at times was a victim of his own creation of certain amounts of chaos through that gate 36 off of his emotional center. This is the gate of crisis. So he probably invited some of that, which would go along with his penetrating awareness. But he found a way around it. Bringing something new. That's what gate 36 does. It hungers to bring something new into experiential form. I should have keynoted that with all of it because it fits right in.
It definitely does. And Commander Lace, yes, at the very beginning of the show, I had a just epiphany because he is a profile 3-6. Why would that would totally fit him with Mr. Has to do everything in threes. So he even has to incarnate down here in an avatar that profile can be divided by the number 3.
Well, so can
we have 9 viewers on the show right now. So
well, one more. He's a triple split. There's 3 parts.
Oh, there you go too.
Holy cow. Yep, that's just amazing.
Lots of synchronicities with this man. And I mean, he's got a lot of 6s in his profile. And I bet you if we add these numbers up in several different ways, I'm pretty sure that they can be divided by 3. So
absolutely. 8, 9, 10. He's got 10 6 lines in his body graph. That's a whopping number.
Yeah, that's a lot. So
they all lived out a 3rd line process in his first 28 and a half years. Every one of those 6 lines lived out a 3rd line process, period. So he was a trial and errorist big time. He must have loved that. While at the same time it being sort of a crisis, but he had all the power to articulate that which was needed and always become the person of consequence, the stranger of consequence, actually. When he showed up, people were like, oh my God, stranger of consequence. So, and he bumped into what he needed. So that's our Nikola Tesla done.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that was excellent.
I think that fit him. Yeah.
Oh, totally. I really enjoyed doing that one. I love doing historical figures.
As a cliff note to all of this, I really should say this at the end of all these. When you hear me talking about somebody, when you hear us talking and you hear the words we're using, these are keynotes right out of the book that keep repeating. You should know that. I didn't make up any of the things I said. I took it from the knowledge, the human design knowledge, that it was already written down. So I wasn't like reading cards or something. We were reading the gates and the lines in his body graph along with the keynotes of his profiling. It's all there.
Yes, and the book that he's talking about is this book, the Definitive Book of Human Design. There should be a link for you to get it in the
description.
Yeah, sorry guys. I've been up since like 4:30 this morning. I'm running on my last energy. Manifestor is about to run out. But yes, in the description you can get your own copy. So, and it is an affiliate link, but that helps support the show and everything.
It's on our website as well. So
it is.
Book your appointment. Don't wait. Tell your friends to book their appointment. It's the best value you'll ever get. I have a long form reading, so don't book it if you want a half-hour reading. It doesn't work out that way.
Dan
2 hours.
Dan gives you way much more than what he charges. I'll tell you that much.
And then everyone's on the hook afterwards to be able to call in and or text me and ask questions. I get back to them. And so get yourself read, partnerships, and your partner, yourself, marriage, individual, you name it. We do the long form and we get to the end of it all. So
yeah, it is life-changing. I will say that. It's from my personal opinion on the human design, it has helped a lot with, just understanding myself better and the way that I navigate. And just like now, okay, I'm running out of energy. That is okay. The old me would have been like trying to compete with the generators. So, but that's okay. I'm going to take my moment when we get off, and y'all have a wonderful evening.
Next week, do you want to know what's coming up for Sunday?
Sure, yeah.
The love gates. That's all I'll say. The love gates. There's 11 of them, and we're going to start going over them.
Okay, perfect.
Rock on, everyone. Tune in Sunday if you want to know what the love is all about.
All right. Y'all have a wonderful evening. We will see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye now.